Hi everyone, how are you doing today? I'm going to be going over Question 7 by Richard Flanagan, an author who is completely new to me. This was a book that my sweet love got me for my birthday a little while ago, and we'd planned to read it together, but I ended up finishing it on my own for reasons that'll soon become clear. But it was such a wonderful surprise and one of my favorite gifts, even though I didn't enjoy the book as much as I was expecting, but I'll get into that in a bit. First of all, who is Richard Flanagan? Now, I don't have any cool visuals for this video. I've got my notes, so feel free to play this in the background while you're doing whatever. But yeah, who's Richard Flanagan? So 3 things to know about him. 1, he was born in 1961 in Tasmania, Australia. And the second thing you should know about him is he is a novelist, but also a writer of nonfiction, including journalism, and a screenwriter. He's covered a wide variety of topics in his career, including Australian politics and environmental abuse. Kind of a Renaissance man, I would say, in terms of his interests and, the different mediums that he expresses his ideas in. So he's most well known for his novel, The Narrow Road to the Deep North. And he won the 2014 Man Booker Prize for that novel. It's about a doctor who is haunted by his past and his life as a slave laborer in World War II under Imperial Japanese rule. So that's actually very important. We'll get back to that in a moment. But that's his most well-known work. And then Question 7 is his most recent success, and this also won a prize. It won the 2024 Bailey Gifford Prize for Nonfiction. I would call this autofiction because it blends some fictional writing in with the nonfiction, but he won the prize for nonfiction, and this book combines like personal events, personal stories from his family, and again, that creative narrative to tell the story he's going through here. So that's kind of an overview of this author. I think he's the second Australian author I've read. I think the first one was, I think her name is Joan Lindsay. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the lady who wrote Picnic at Hanging Rock, which is another Australian classic, very haunting story, I would recommend. So Australian literature, very new to me, but something I'd like to explore more. So what is Question 7 about? Let's take a moment to just admire this beautiful cover art. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to cover art, and it's just got this gorgeous kind of vintage style cover art. Hard to see there. It says, "Who loves longer?" And that's kind of the central question here, which we'll get to in a minute. Succinctly, though, what is Question 7 about? Well, Richard Flanagan is a descendant of Irish convicts who were sent to Australia, and his father was also a slave laborer, again, under Japanese imperial rule on the Burma Railway Project in Thailand. So if you've watched the movie Bridge on the River Kwai with Alec Guinness, one of my favorite movies, I don't think it's very historically accurate, I'm afraid, but in any case, that at least was set in the same historical events that Flanagan's father survived in World War II. And the book actually starts with this sort of tense meeting between Flanagan and one of the Japanese guards at the camp where his father was held captive. So this book is, I'd say, an ambitious effort to make some sense of what happened to Flanagan's father and, what exactly led to this traumatic experience on both a personal and political level. And that question, who loves longer? Well, the full question is, who loves longer, a man or a woman? And that's taken from a Chekhov short story. And that's it's supposed to be the motif which Flanagan is centering his book around. I said it's an ambitious book. I think it's a little bit too ambitious for me. It never really came together in a way that I thought was cohesive. So this book covers his father's memories. It covers Flanagan's own childhood. It covers the love life, that is, of H.G. Wells, the development of the atomic bomb, this novel that Wells wrote called The World Set Free, and, Flanagan's grappling with his heritage, being a descendant of convicts, his thoughts on how they're treated, and the dynamics with Australian Aboriginal people. And then he also talks about a near-death experience that he had. So many topics in this book, lots of jumping between history and family experience and literary musings. I had rather high expectations for this book. I'm a daughter of an immigrant who escaped from a country at war, so when I think about some of these traumatic wartime experiences that affect families and their children, and that generational stuff, is something I can really relate to, and I'm always kind of curious how other people process these things and how does it impact them. It helps me try to process how it impacted me. Even though these are very different experiences, I think a lot of them lead to some of the same outcomes. So I was really curious about that, and I was fascinated by this idea of, tracing back through your family history and also world history to try to understand what happened and your own identity that is formed out of that. So really on board with the idea behind this book, enjoyed a lot of the historical anecdotes, and the family anecdotes as well. But I just felt like the book was pretty meandering, and I have a lot of patience for that. I love books like Moby Dick and other autofiction I've read, but this book in particular felt extremely disjointed even. So the title quote implies some exploration of, male and female experiences. Who loves longer, a man or a woman? Well, he doesn't really get into that. He does talk about various men and various women, but I don't think the quote really, it was never really fully explored for me. And then there's like this weird jump at the beginning of the book between his father's trauma, and then it goes right into H.G. Wells' sex life, and that was pretty jarring and off-putting. And then, there's a few more jumps like that later in the book. And I guess the tone shift was hard for me to follow. I did really enjoy, like I said, the family anecdotes. I really appreciated his observations about how convict descendants are perceived, and like that whole history that Australia has to, understand to this day and live with the after effects of that. He talked about the dynamic between convicts and Aboriginals, which I didn't know anything about, and I thought that was very interesting. Basically, a lot of the ideas and things he describes in the book would have made amazing essays on their own. I think it just didn't come together well for me as a book. I also really enjoyed the part of the book where he was talking about his kayaking accident. Again, would have made an amazing essay on its own. As part of this book, it just all felt a bit disconnected and rambling, I guess. I also really disliked how often Flanagan tried to write a profound quote. So at the end of nearly every chapter, and sometimes each section, he would try to write these very profound sounding comments or thoughts, and it just felt a bit forced to me. I thought his best writing was when he was just keeping things very simple and letting the events really speak for themselves. That kayaking accident, for example, the way he describes it is so vivid and so gripping and just very emotional, actually. And I just really thought that when he just let it speak for itself, let his memories and emotions speak for themselves without trying to draw any greater thoughts out of it in the moment. I think it just works so much better. And I guess, at the risk of maybe myself sounding a bit pretentious, I think the book sounded a bit pretentious at parts and kind of undermined the book as a whole. So I would give this book 3 stars overall. Like, it was kind of a good middle of the road read, but I probably wouldn't read it again. And there were some times I thought about giving up on it. I did learn a lot about Australia that I didn't know before, and that was good. Like, if you're not familiar with Australian history, might be a good place to start to try and get into some of that mental space, I guess, and learn a little bit about some of these events. If you already have some historical background, this probably won't teach you anything new, but I just didn't, or had barely any. I guess I wanted to like this book a lot more than I did. I think what I really wanted from this book was a single, clearer theme and less tone shifts, and I don't know, just a little more cohesion between the different parts. But I'm kind of in the minority. A lot of people love this book. A lot of people find it to be very profound and moving throughout. So I would say give it a try. This is just my personal experience with the novel. I just felt like it had a potential that was never quite realized. So that's my review of question 7. Let me know if you've read it or if you have any related books you'd like to recommend. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.